Welcome to Russia, a very specific country these days with very specific rules. A lot of people have their conceptions and their misconceptions about Russia, but one thing that Westerners usually don't realize about Russia is that a lot of the regular things they're used to and that they perceive as completely normal and fine are actually illegal in Russia. I recently stumbled across this video from the infographics show about regular things that are illegal in Russia, and I wanted to do a Russian reaction to it because a lot of the things here are actually not very true, but I think it's very entertaining nonetheless. Now, a lot of things actually not mentioned in this video. For example, a regular thing that is illegal in Russia, I would say, is free speech. That is like the main one. I spoke about that in my last video. However, in today's video, I wanted to do a bit of a light-hearted video about Russia, if that's even possible these days. And by the way, before we get into it, I just want to address the elephant in the room, which is my face that is clearly burnt right now. I'm sorry, guys. A couple of days ago, I was in the Georgian countryside riding a horse for like 6 hours in a row with no sunscreen on my face. So, yeah, guys, I'm just doing side quests at this point. But I did record a vlog and it's coming soon, already out. I don't know when this video is gonna come out. But anyway, with that out of the way, let's talk about the regular things that are banned in Russia.
A Russian man, let's call him Alexei, is about to commit a crime. He's part of
Me as fuck. Literally me when I'm about to sit down to record a video for my YouTube channel. Because like I said, at this point in Russia, you cannot say anything.
He's part of a gang that deals in illegal products. He walks down a dark alleyway late at night to meet another guy who's been told is called Vasily. What exactly does Alexei have to sell? And what is Vasily so desperate to buy? Heroin? Cocaine? Methamphetamine? MDMA? The answer is none of those things. The answer is cheese. And on this occasion, cheddar cheese. These two criminals are well aware that they could do some serious time for cheese dealing. So now let's have a look at why, as well as other insane things you won't believe are illegal in Russia.
Yeah, look, I know where this is going and this is kind of true, yeah. And I've also had my own experience with this, by the way, with banned cheese in Russia. But let's see what infographics has to say about it, and then I'll tell you my banned cheese experience.
Number 10. Imported food products. In 2015, you might have read a story in the media about an organized Russian crime gang that was arrested for importing over $20 million of illegal cheese.
Essentially, I know where this is going. This is going to be about the ban of imported food products from European countries in Russia that hit after all the sanctions that followed the annexation of Crimea. And actually, these were what Russia describes as counter-sanctions.
The reason is Russia's ban on imported food products that started in 2014. This was called a retaliatory food import ban because Russia was retaliating for sanctions being placed on it.
Exactly, which basically was nothing but a detriment to the Russian people. So once again, you know, guys, great government, by the way. I've actually talked about this in the video previously. Russia banned the import of European products such as cheese, vegetables, meats, etc. completely. So basically right now in Russia, if you go to a supermarket, you're not gonna be able to find actual Italian cheese or prosciutto or jamon. I know that's not Italian, but the point stands, it's first world, etc, etc, etc. It's just not there. The only Parmesan you really have in stores in Russia is Russian Parmesan.
While this led to cheese production inside Russia increasing, people still wanted their delicious fix from other cheese-making countries. People wanted real Italian mozzarella on their pizza, with some Russians saying the homemade version of pizza didn't quite meet their expectations. Italian restaurant owners were up in arms about it. This didn't mean that local folks were looking at doing hard time for putting illegal French camembert on their toast, but criminals have been imprisoned for illegally importing various banned food products.
Honestly, guys, unsung heroes. Like, here's what my experience was with Italian cheese and stuff. So I actually visited Italy in 2020. This was right before COVID really hits and before the restrictions were put in place. And essentially, I bought a bunch of cheese and stuff, and like, I bought like truffle oil and stuff like that, basically, you know, trying to be bougie. And I still live with my parents then, so I brought it home to my parents in Chelyabinsk. And I remember back then when I was crossing the border, I was like aware that, you know, this stuff is banned. So I was actually not sure if like I'm even able to legally bring cheese across the border into Russia. But thankfully, if you bring like a small amounts for your personal consumption, it's fine. But if you actually try to distribute it and sell it and, you know, organize a business out of it, now that is illegal. And also, I just want to mention that my family, like, they didn't really like Parmesan that much, and I've brought like different types of it, different aged types of it and stuff. And my family was just like, we don't get it, so we'll just, you know, continue eating Russian cheese. Because and I was like, you know, fair enough, guys, you know, because I come from a very proletariat family, and like nobody in my extended family has ever been to Europe or anything like that, except me.
There was a hotline people could call if they thought an illegal food dealer was working in their area. If someone got a whiff of European cheese in their hood, they could inform the authorities and the cheese sellers.
I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did.
In fact, some Russians watched in disbelief as contraband foods were destroyed on live TV. What they beheld was the destruction of things such as Polish apples, Dutch cheese, and Danish pork. Even some ducklings were seized by the cops and then killed and incinerated.
Exactly, yeah, I remember this as well. I also talked about this in my video back in the day about the Western food being banned in Russia, basically. Yeah, companies and like all these farmers, etc. would destroy actual European products and actual perfectly fine food that they could give to like whatever, you know, homeless people or like a orphanage or something. No, instead they destroyed huge amounts of perfectly fine foods in order to, you know, show these Europeans what for. And as a result of these counter sanctions, essentially like vegetables and cheese and stuff like that in Russia just became even more expensive because now they had to be Russian produced and the Russian agricultural sector wasn't really in that great of a position in 2014. So essentially by employing these counter sanctions, not only did Russia not really harm Europe or the West in any way, which was the plan, right? But also literally just made Russia's citizens poorer and also made them have less of a choice in stores. So shooting yourself in the foot, now that is a classic Russian policy.
But food is only the tip of the crazy iceberg. Number 9, popular blogs.
Again, guys, you're talking about me, what the fuck?
So, you've been blogging for a while in Russia and you've started getting very many page views per day.
I have, yeah.
You're almost internet famous and you're mighty proud of that fact. But then one day you hear a knock at the door and it's the cops. They're not happy at all about your online celebrity status. The reason for that is if a blog in Russia starts getting more than 3,000 page views a day, by law it has to be registered with the country's mass media regulator, Roskomnadzor.
Yeah, okay. This one is kind of bullshit, actually. I mean, the law does exist, but I think it works in a different way now, where basically they realized that basically when this law was implemented, the internet in Russia was way smaller. There were way less YouTubers and stuff, and only a few people had like millions of subscribers. Right now in Russia, there's plenty of channels that have tens of millions of subscribers. Russian YouTube overall is one of the biggest sectors of YouTube. And actually they passed this law back then, so anybody who got like more than 3,000 views a day had to be registered or whatever, but I guess sooner or later they realized that this law is like impossible to enforce pretty much, and that they just don't have the manpower to actually check on all of these YouTubers or whatever. So I think the way this works now is that apparently if you get more than 3,000 views a day, you're like considered a type of mass media. And basically all I think this does is like change your status when it comes to legal proceedings and whatnot. But yeah, like overall this is pretty nonsense because no, you don't get a knock on the door from the police when your channel gets a certain amount of subscribers or something asking you to register. That doesn't happen. And I have plenty of people I know who are Russian YouTubers who are very popular. Nobody's ever had to register in any way or had any encounters with the police about their channel. But yeah, neither has this happened to me, and I think this is right here is like a good example of a bit of misinformation, but can't win them all, I guess.
Critics called the move a crackdown on free expression in Russia, stating that Vladimir Putin was flexing his muscles, making sure that no one could start criticizing him online. In fact, Putin takes a dim view of the internet and has said before that it is a CIA project, which is tinfoil hat level of crazy right there. But maybe there's a good reason.
Hey, look, I'm not gonna say it, but but yeah, in 2014, one thing they introduced is that the government got way more tools to basically see what Russian citizens are doing online. But no, having a popular blog in Russia is not illegal as is right now. You know, at least YouTube is not banned yet, although I don't doubt that might actually happen like this year.
Number 8. Memes. Have you ever seen a really funny meme containing an image of Vladimir Putin? Of course you have.
Yeah.
They're everywhere. Kind of funny, eh? But not so funny, according to Roskomnadzor. It's said that making fun of people in a meme is illegal, with a law being passed a few years ago. In its own words, the agency said, these ways of using images violate the laws governing personal data and harm the honor, dignity, and business of public figures.
Yeah, I've also made a video about this as well back in the day. And basically, yeah, this is also one of these laws that is like not very strictly enforced, I guess, but it is enforced, and sometimes certain people just get caught up in the system because, like, you guys gotta understand that the way the Russian police works is that their efficiency in front of the higher-ups is based on the amount of people they get locked up, so it's only in their interest to lock as many people up as possible. That's always been the case. And people have been jailed for memes before.
Tell that to Maria Motuznaya, a young Russian girl who back in 2018 was labeled an extremist for posting memes on the internet. Her memes were mostly about religion and not public figures per se, but that was enough for the Russian government to send the cops around to her house and take her away for interrogation. One of the memes consisted of a group of nuns about to light up cigarettes. The caption below was, "Quick, while God isn't looking."
Yeah, I remember this story well too. Essentially, she was being trialed for insulting the feelings of religious people, which is also a law in Russia, which basically does not allow you to speak ill of religion, or Christianity in particular at least. There's already been cases like that before. For example, Ruslan Sokolovsky, a Russian YouTuber who got almost jailed, but he did spend like a few months in pre-trial detention for insulting the feelings of religious people, and his crime was that he recorded a video of himself playing Pokemon Go in a church. And for that, they almost wanted to jail him for like 5-6 years. So essentially, with most of these cases, these people usually get trialed for a reason. Extremism, or insulting religion, or, you know, criticism of the government or something like that. It's not like memes in general are outlawed or something, or there's even such a term as a meme in the Russian criminal code. No, Russia just thinks that a meme that some people found offensive or whatever is a good enough cause to lock away a person for, you know, several years in prison, which is, you know, something that frustrates me very much.
If you think that's crazy, it's gonna get crazier.
I know, dude. I know it will. I've been seeing nothing but things getting crazier and worse for my entire life, so yeah. At some point in my life, like 3-4 years ago, I thought that, you know, there's no way to get worse than this, but it always gets worse every year, so at this point, I'm not surprised.
7. WTF. Imagine a Russian version of Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction playing in Moscow theaters. How much fun would that be? You'd hear the translation from the opening part of the movie when Samuel Jackson is interrogating the young men. Say what one more time? I dare you. I double dare you. The next word would have been left out in the Russian version, as would a good part of the entire script. That's because in 2014, Vladimir Putin signed a law that banned all cursing in theater performances. Not only that, cursing is also not allowed in movies, TV, and the media. Get caught using bad language, and if you're a company, you could be fined up to $1,400. If it's just a person caught swearing, they could be fined $70.
Yeah, this is something that I've actually noticed myself as well. Russian translations of anything like movies and TV, they never have swear words. And I believe this was a thing actually even before 2014, because even before 2014, I do not remember ever seeing curse words in video games or movies or anything. Usually, like with Tarantino movies, they always replace like fuck and motherfucker with mать твою, usually, which just means your mother. So, and yet again, this is one of the examples of how Russian laws like never work. As far as I remember, by law, even YouTubers apparently are also not allowed to swear like in Russia, but I don't think there's ever been a single case of anybody being prosecuted for swearing in a YouTube video in Russia. And also, Russian YouTubers swear left and right. They swear all the time. So it's like, I don't think anybody even cares about this, right? So
now let's continue to explore Russia's love-hate relationship with the internet with number 6. No drugs, please. We're Russian.
What?
There are illegal substances in Russia, just like there are in other countries, but Russia
Shocking, dude, I know, yeah.
taken things a little further and banned websites that talk about drugs. The move was to prevent young folks from getting into drugs, but what if folks can't find the right information about such substances? Some drug websites, such as the US-based Arrowhead, aren't exactly anti or pro-drugs, but it can serve as a useful resource if you want to know more about a certain drug. But in Russia, this could be seen as promoting the use of drugs, and so such a website or blog would be banned.
Yeah, there is a law called that bans promoting drugs, and actually it's complete nonsense. Like, quite recently, for example, the Russian rapper Morgenstern was actually fined for promoting drugs in his music, just for mentioning drugs in the music. So, essentially in Russia, if you're a rapper and you're truly about it and you're rapping about smoking them blunts, they could actually fine you for very big amounts, or even potentially jail you for promoting drugs. So, yeah, even being a rapper in Russia isn't really safe. But also I would say in this video, they're saying that a lot of drug-related websites in Russia are banned. They are, but the amounts of those that are not banned is also huge. I don't mean marketplaces, of course. Marketplaces in Russia are only on the deep web. However, if you talk about websites just talking about drugs, there's plenty of them, and it's really not hard to find, to be honest.
Russia has been trying to crack down on boozing. Another ban now in place is drinking in parks and other public areas. Yeah, you could be arrested for bringing out a bottle of wine while picnicking with your lover.
Yeah, drinking in public is banned in Russia, and this is actually something that surprised me when I first started going abroad. When I was in Europe for the first time, I was actually surprised that you can drink outside, and I don't really have anything to say other than what I already said in a video with Nikki Proshin about this.
First of all, you can legally buy alcohol 24/7 because there's no curfew like in Russia, I guess because they're trying to stop people from drinking. Bro, try having a decent country. That will stop people from drinking anyway.
I know, guys. Absolute bars.
Jehovah's Witnesses. You can be sure of one thing in Russia, and that's the fact that you won't be getting a knock on the door, and when you open it, there are two smartly dressed folks who say, "We're here to talk about the only true God, Jehovah." In 2017, the country outlawed the religion. If you belong to it, you will be labeled an extremist. Some people are presently in prison for admitting that they are a Jehovah's Witness and trying to spread the word.
Very true. I vividly remember when I was a kid, Russia was way less restrictive when it comes to, let's put it that way, unorthodox religions. And I remember Jehovah's Witnesses on the streets all the time handing out like flyers and booklets. And while I do not miss Jehovah's Witnesses knocking on my door, I would say in general I'm against this. I think people should have the rights to believe what they want to believe, especially when in Russia there's actually a lot of sects pretty much that the government does not crack down on, but they do crack down on the more well-known ones, you know.
Number 4. Gay pride. You won't see
Yeah.
the rainbow flag flying on the streets of Russia this year or next year or for many decades to come, and that's because in 2012 Russia banned gay pride parades for a century. Yeah, you heard that right, 100 years. In fact, Russia has what's called a gay propaganda law.
Yep.
It's not illegal to be gay or lesbian or bisexual or transgender in Russia, but it is illegal to outwardly be proud about sexuality that Russia doesn't deem traditional.
Yeah, and this video was released in 2020 when they only had the old version of the gay propaganda law in place, which prohibited gay propaganda against children. And just recently, Russia passed a law which actually prohibits LGBT propaganda in general for adults. So like, you cannot even talk about LGBT issues in Russia anymore. You cannot actually outwardly say and really talk about your sexual orientation and everything. And in my opinion, yeah, this is just, medieval bullshit that Russia needs to get rid of, and eventually will get rid of, because it's like the metastasis of the Soviet Union, essentially, cancer cells in Russia's body that are left over from the Soviet Union. Eventually, when this generation goes away, let's put it that way, laws and moral norms in Russia will change very quick. I do believe that to be true, because the modern Russian youth has a very different mindset and a very different outlook on life compared to our parents and our grandparents.
Number 3. Don't forget your ID. When Russians reach the ripe old age of 14, they're told they must carry an internal passport with them at all times when outside the house. This ID is issued by the Ministry of Internal Affairs. If a person is found to be without this document, they could be held by the police.
Yeah, that's kind of true. I mean, the thing is, in Russia, basically, if the police, ever stops you, the first thing they ever wants to look at is your ID. And I've actually never been in this position, to be honest. I've actually had a very minuscule amount of interactions with Russian police in my life, thankfully. But I've heard stories about this before. I've heard stories, for example, from my friends who lived in Chelyabinsk, but then moved to, Moscow or St. Petersburg. Sometimes what happens, for example, if you live there, but if you don't have, essentially, if you're not registered in the city, if the police ever comes up to you and, for example, finds out that you have no ID, or if you have an ID which doesn't have a registration of the city that you're in, and if you're actually not a tourist and if you're living there, the police actually could fine you. I cannot imagine it's very harsh punishments or anything, but in general, yeah, I would say, as a Russian, it is recommended to have your ID on you at all times. But I didn't always do that, and I've never really been in a position personally when that was an issue for me, so I don't know.
Now, let's get crazy again. Number 2. Driving.
Yeah, driving in Russia should be illegal. For sure.
Driving isn't banned for everyone, but if you are transgender in Russia, you cannot get behind the wheel. You cannot ride a motorcycle.
Really?
Either. What is this madness, you're probably thinking? Well, the law...
I've actually never heard about this.
The law came in just a few years ago and was supposed to cut down on traffic accidents in the country. If you don't know already, Russia is renowned for its number of traffic accidents and fatalities. But what's that got to do with transgender people? The answer is that the government has stated that trans folks have a physical or mental disability.
That'd be crazy. In America, people are fighting against, Republicans, and their transphobia, but in Russia, compared to Russian officials, Republicans would be, the most trans accepting people ever. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane.
Understandably, human rights activists have called this utterly ridiculous, but it's only slightly less crazy than the number 1 illegal thing in Russia.
Let me Google this, actually. Okay, I read about it right now for a little bit, and as far as I understand, this is, again, one of those laws that's kinda not enforced very heavily, and as far as I know, in general, actually, ironically, even though Russia is a very homophobic country, I guess you could say, on a governmental level at this point, as far as I've heard, Russia actually has pretty decent, healthcare, and by that I mean governmental public healthcare for trans people. Because I've heard that Russia actually can fund your transition or your hormonal therapy, etc. Of course, I don't know how well that entire system is set up and if it actually works, but I think that's actually the case. And it's just really strange, that a country that, is pretty much banning gay people at this point is actually, still willing to aid trans people as far as medical help goes. But with the way everything is going in Russia right now, that is about to be, over soon as well, probably. So the way these folks get treated in Russia is pretty sad.
Number 1. Lacy underwear. In 2014, Russia introduced a law that banned the sale or production of lace underwear. The same law was also introduced in Kazakhstan and Belarus. But why, you might be thinking? And it's a good question. The answer is because Putin wanted women wearing homemade Russian underwear that was at least 6% cotton. Women in those...
That feeling when Putin even wants to control what's, what kind of underwear women are wearing in Russia. Bit abusive much,
In fact, a group of women protested the law, with some of them wearing lacy underwear on their heads and shouting, "Freedom to panties." They were subsequently arrested and taken to the police station. One guy who commented on the law said that people would just go abroad abroad and buy their underwear. He told the media, "I think this is just another silly law that shows the ineffectiveness of our government. God forbid you get pulled over by the cops in Russia while wearing lacy underwear and carrying a Danish sausage in your pocket."
Me. That's how I'm pulling up. When I'm gonna be returning to Russia, that's my outfit, and that's my fucking... Those are gonna be the items I'm gonna have in my backpack, for sure. Yeah, I've heard about this as well, and, you know, quite honestly, I don't even have anything to say about this, you know? It's just one of these, like, insane ones that shows, like, that these people in power, like, they really... I think they're just bored as fuck, to be honest. Like, that's the... Again, all of this is just a great example and a great, you know... It's just great proof that people should not get to sit at the same position for over 20 years. And that the powers that be actually need to change to actually drive the society forward, or we will end up in Russia of the year 2023. But anyway guys, I guess that's going to be pretty much it for today's video. I hope you guys did enjoy it. If you guys did, then please make sure to slap the like on it. And as well guys, if you want to support this channel additionally, then go over to the link down in the description. You can become a YouTube member. It's the first link in the description. Click on it and you can donate to me monthly. It helps me out a lot actually. You can also do a super thanks underneath this video. And yeah guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.